we'll go ahead and get started. So we're gonna try to run through what we covered in the chapter. Some stuff, again, is gonna be repetitive, but I want to make sure you guys have it. Again, this chapter is called Implementing Ethernet Virtual LANs, right? So we're going over VLANs, right, and all that encompasses. So we're going to talk about access ports. We're going to talk about trunks. We're going to talk about dynamic trunking protocol, and we're going to especially talk about broadcast domains, quote unquote VLANs, right? So we're going to touch on all that, right? We're going to make sure you guys have your literature. You guys have chapter 8 to read, but we're going to have a little bit of labs just to talk about, okay? Um, so how do we go ahead? How do we go ahead and we create, right? We create a network that has VLANs, right? Well, first things first, we need to go ahead and go on the switch and create those VLANs, right? So let's talk about my topology real quick, right? So our topology, I have two switches, okay? Switch one, switch two, right? Now for my design, I have three VLANs present. I have VLAN 1, I have VLAN 10, I have VLAN 20, right? I have layer 3 information for both VLAN 10 and VLAN 20, but we're just talking about layer 2 for right now, okay? So let's clear all this and let's get into the switch and let's start configuring a few things, okay? So first we want to do is go ahead and configure VLAN 10, right? We see on our diagram that off this switch, we have a PC that's in VLAN 10, we have a PC that's in VLAN 20, okay? So we're going to first create the VLANs, but we're also then going to assign these ports to their specific VLANs, right? So first things first, let's create our VLANs, right? So we'll say VLAN 10, excellent. Now, guys, remember, right? Going through our config checklist, whenever we go ahead and we want to make a change that is going to globally affect the device, we have to go to global configuration mode to make that change, okay? So with that, I had to, of course, get into user exec mode, right? As soon as I logged into the switch, right? I do that by typing in enable at you know what I'm saying, at the basic prompt, right? So I get here, then of course to get to global configuration, I do configuration terminal or config T. I get to global configuration mode, right? Now I can go ahead and create my VLAN. Per the config checklist, I type in VLAN and the number of my VLAN, right? And so I wanted to give it VLAN 10 as I did in my design. So we gave it VLAN 10 and we're going to give it a name, okay? Just to keep it organized. We're going to say sales, okay? Next, I will have to create VLAN 20. Let's do VLAN 20 and let's give it a name. Let's call it engineering, okay? Excellent. Now that we've created this and we trust that we did it correctly, right? My golden rule, we trust but verify, right? So let's go ahead and use some of the verification commands that we've learned in this chapter to verify that we've created another broadcast domain, okay? And again, these broadcast domains are created via software, right? That's why they're called virtual local area networks, okay? So let's do a show VLAN. That's one of the commands that we learned about, okay? So for looking here, we have VLAN 10, right? It has the name that we put, sales, and we have VLAN 20. Do we have any ports in these VLANs? We do not. So what we need to do, right, per our design, we need to assign these ports that connect to these PCs on the correct VLANs, right? Because essentially, what's our goal for this lab, right? Our goal for this lab, and I don't think I talked about it, so I apologize. I want VLAN 10 using VLANs and all the VLAN concepts that we've learned in this chapter. I want VLAN 10 to be able to communicate with the PC on switch 2 that's also in VLAN 10. That's going to take a bit of work, but we need to make sure we go step by step. Okay? Go ahead and clear this out. All right. So we have this. So first, let's go ahead and assign gigabit 0/1, right? That connects to virtual PC 3. We need to make sure we assign it to the sales VLAN. So let's go ahead and we're going to make a change globally to the switch. So we need to go back into global configuration mode. So let's do that. And we're going to do interface gigabit 0/1. Okay. So what did we learn about assigning, right? There's actually a config checklist, assigning ports to specific virtual local area networks, right? We would put in the command, right? Switch port. Now let's look up to see if switch port is available to us. Okay. All right. So we have the command switch port available to us. Okay. And it tells us that switch port, you could set the switching mode characteristics. Right, let's look a little bit deeper, right? I love the question mark. You guys learned about the question mark in part 2, okay? Let's use it, right? Okay, so it's telling us, right? We have different options. We can set it as an access port. We can set it as a trunk port. We can put some voice attributes on it. We can configure port security. What we want to do here is our goal here is to assign this port to a specific VLAN. So, and we know it's not going to be carrying multiple, right? It's multiple VLANs. It's just gonna go ahead and just be assigned to one host, right? We want to dedicate that host to one VLAN, right? Okay, and we're gonna assign it to the sales VLAN. That sales VLAN is VLAN 10. So to do that, we need to make it into an access port. Okay, so switch port access, and it's asking us set VLAN when interface is in access mode. So now that we want to set it, we're putting it in access mode. We need to tell this the switch, hey, here's what VLAN I want you to set it in. If we put the question mark again, it's telling us we could either A, set the VLAN ID of the VLAN when this port is in access mode, or set the VLAN when interface is in access mode. I'm going to go with the number. I have never, now guys, to be honest, I've never set it via the name. We can try that in this lab, right? That's what we're here for. We're here to get in the lab and break stuff and test stuff out. Okay. So switch port access VLAN 10. I went ahead and pressed enter. Now, how do we check our work? Let's go ahead and go back to our show VLAN command. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do something that we learned in part 2, which is we can use the do command, right? So we're all the way in global configuration. We can't put in regular commands like show, what have you, that are available to us in user exec mode, right? A privilege exec mode, I apologize. Privilege exec mode, of course, is with the pound symbol with nothing in parentheses, right? To access those commands that are available to us in privilege exec mode, we need to put do within global configuration mode before putting in our commands. We learned that in section 2. So we're going to do a show VLAN, because I don't want to go all the way back down to privilege exec mode and then elevate my privilege back to global configuration mode. So we see here, what do we see, right? If we look at our design, let's go ahead and pull out my pencil again. We see, hey, off of switch 1, right, virtual PC 3 is connected via gigabit 0/1. We went ahead and we configured, right, this port to be in VLAN 10. And what port is it? Gigabit 0/1. Okay. So we verified this is correct, but we're not done. We're not done. Now we need to go ahead and configure, right, the other PC, VLAN 20, and put it in the right port. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay. So we're still in global configuration mode. Let's go to the interface. So let's do gigabit interface, gigabit 0/2. Okay. Same commands, right? Switch port, access, VLAN, and we're going to say 20. Okay. How do we check our work? Do show VLAN. Amazing, right? So if we pull out our pencil again, we can see here from our design, right, on switch 1, gigabit 0/2 is what connects to virtual PC 4. And if we look on the switch, we configured interface gigabit 0/2 to be in VLAN 20. Okay. So we did it correctly. Now we need to do the same thing on switch 2. Okay. All right. First things first, right? Because we made changes that we know we're going to stay static because this is our static for now, because this is our design. So let's go ahead and save our configuration, right? Because we know this is how it's going to stay. Typically, if you're doing any configuration like this, I say wait, test stuff before you save it. Because of course, if you make some changes, like let's say if you make some changes to AAA or something that can lock you out of the device, you're going to have to, of course, do a password recovery or do a factory reset. Okay, so let's go ahead and go on switch 2 and let's do the same exact thing. Okay, and we're almost done, guys. We got 5 more minutes, okay? Because we're breaking up these labs into pieces. Okay, so there we go. Let's see if that helps. Does that help? Yes, it does. Okay, boom. All right, I was worried you guys couldn't see that one. All right, so let's do the same thing. So we need to first configure our broadcast domain, or we need to configure our virtual local area networks. Again, we're configuring these via software. So first, again, we get into the switch. We're in user exec mode. We type in enable. I use a shorthand. We get to privilege exec mode. How do we know that we're in privilege exec mode? We see the pound symbol, okay? But we want to make changes that are going to globally affect the device. We need to get to global configuration mode. To do that, remember you guys learned in part 2, we need to go ahead and do configuration terminal, or the short term config T, okay? So the switch tells us, hey, enter configuration commands, one per line, end with Control Z. Okay, so now we're here. So first things first, we want to take care of, we want to configure the VLANs. Okay, so we're going to do VLAN 10 first, and the name of it is sales. Okay, then we're going to do VLAN 20. Okay, I'm going to speed through this because, of course, you guys saw it in the other one, right? And we're going to say engineer. Okay, all right. So we have that settled, right? But again, we trust but verify. We're engineers. We always want to check our work. You guys learned about the do command, right? In the last section, right? In section 2 of this book. So I want to go ahead and use a command that's typically only available in privilege exec mode, right? But I'm in global configuration mode, and that's typically not allowed. If I do a show VLAN, it's going to say invalid input detected. Why? Because the context of that command is only available, it is only available in privilege exec mode. Okay? So we need to go ahead and de-elevate de-elevate our privileges just for that command so that we can see what it looks like. So we'll do and then we'll do show VLAN. Okay? Okay. So now we have access to that command, right? And so now we can see, hey, VLAN 10 is created and it's called sales. VLAN 20 is created and it's called sales. Now, what else do we need to do? The other part that we need to do is now we need to go ahead and assign ports off the switch to specific VLANs or local area networks that were configured or created via software. Okay, so let's do that. So we're still in configuration mode. Let's do virtual PC5 first. Let's do interface, right? And let's do gigabit 0/1. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and make this modification to the port, right? And we're going to keep it at layer 2. So we're going to say switch port. We're going to say access, right? Because our design isn't saying I want you to carry multiple VLANs, right? I just want you to go ahead and be able to connect to a host, right? So it's going to connect to its own collision domain. It's going to have its own collision domain, but it's also just connecting to a non-switch. Okay, so we're going to do switch port access VLAN, right? Because of course I want to specify it to a VLAN, and of course per our design we're going to put it in VLAN 10. Okay, let's go ahead and confirm that we actually put this port in VLAN 10. Okay, you guys see that, right? If I pull out my marker, we can see in VLAN 10 we have the status of active, and port 0/1 is in that VLAN. Okay, let's go ahead and finish up, and let's go ahead and do that for gigabit 0/2 or virtual PC6. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and hop on that interface, and let's do 0/2. Let's do the same thing, switch port, access VLAN 20. Okay, so we successfully put it in VLAN 20. We're not going to drop down to privilege exec mode. We're going to go ahead and check this while we're in interface configuration mode. Okay, because again, the do command is going to de-elevate. I don't care what part of configuration mode you are in. Maybe you're in router configuration mode. Maybe you're in interface configuration mode. Doesn't matter. You can use the do command to de-elevate to have access to the command that you're using that's typically only available in privilege exec mode. Okay. So we'll do a show VLAN. Excellent. So now we can see, pull out my handy dandy pencil. We can see VLAN 20. We have gigabit 0/2. Okay. All right. So we have that. And so now, right, and we're going to end tonight's class here because this is going to be a continuation of a lab that's going to build up. So what I expect, right, let's save our configuration because we know this is how we want the configuration to be. Okay. So we configured, right, if I'm looking at my design, I configured, right, PC3, right, let's blow this up a little bit. PC3, right, to be a VLAN 10, right, that's hanging off of switch 1, and PC5, that's in VLAN 10, that's hanging off of switch 2. Let's give them IP addresses, right? And of course, you guys can see that the IP addresses for VLAN 10 is right over here. Okay. So with that, let's go ahead and assign it IP addresses and test to see if they can communicate. Okay. All right, let's put it down there. There we go. All right, so let's assign IP address. So let's say IP 10.10.1. We'll say 30. Let's say 24, and we'll say 10.10.1.1. Okay. All right. So it's doing, right? It's doing a gratuitous ARP in the background. You guys will learn about that later. It's saying, hey, does anybody have this address? Nobody's answering, right? Boom. It broadcasted itself. We're good. So the PC assigned itself that IP address. Let's do the same thing for PC5. Okay. Boom. Right here. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and do 10.10.1.50. Whoops. Almost forgot the subnet mask. And then let's do the gateway 10.10.1.1. Okay. So let's talk about what we have here. We have a PC here in VLAN 10. We have a PC here in VLAN 10. We have a switch that interconnects between each other. Okay? Right? This is telling me I should be able to communicate between each other. Let's give it a shot. Okay? All right. So I got PC3. All right. Let's go ahead and let's try to ping. Because I have a connection between my two switches. So it should work. Right? And we'll end tonight at this point. We'll go ahead and continue in our next session. So I have an IP address on PC3 of 10.10.1.30, and I'm trying to ping 50. I mean, it should work because I'm in the same VLAN and I'm going over the switch. Wow, that's not working. Let's try for the other side. 10.10.1.30. Ping's not reachable. Okay. Let's troubleshoot this. Let's take a look. Let's check this interface. Let's do a capture. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay. Little trigger happy. So gigabit 0/1. Okay. And guys, mind you, this is the new this is the new Eve and G, so bear with me. Let's give it a second. Okay. So we're checking that port. Let's go ahead and okay, and maybe we need to go ahead and regenerate this because typically that's how it is. Let's go ahead and do this again. Okay, let's give it a second. Blow that bad boy up. Nope, nothing. All right, let's go ahead and test another one. Let's go ahead and test that port. Matter of fact, let's test it all the way through. Let's test that. Go. There we go. So now let's go ahead and ping from PC3, see if we see anything. I'm not seeing anything. I see layer 2 packets. I'm sorry, layer 2 frames. I apologize. For spanning tree, for dynamic trunking protocol, I see that. Don't see anything. Let's just check. We're engineers. Let's check it again. This time let's check it from the PC. Yeah. See ARC broadcast messages. We're seeing it. Bright as day. Seeing arcs. All right. Let's do another capture. All right. Nothing. We are not seeing nothing.
Dave, sorry
So,
to.
hold on. Wait a minute. So,
Mhm.
with that being said, and guys, by the way, I'm putting it in a broken state on purpose, by the way. So, it's I want you to think about this because it's talked about in chapter 8. When we come back tomorrow, or God willing, something doesn't happen tomorrow. Our next session, I want you to think about and say with your words why communication isn't happening from virtual PC3. You can take a screenshot of this lab. Why communication from PC3 isn't happening over the interconnection between switch 1 to switch 2 to reach virtual PC5. Okay? All right, guys.
Alrighty. Thanks,
I will,
David.
no problem. I'll see you in this lab tomorrow.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, Dave.